record. We record all of the Zoom sessions. So if I didn't answer your question today, you can go to our website and hit the blog area, and every recorded talk that I have had since the pandemic started is there. So let me start off right away with talking about the pain points, and the pain points that I imagine that the children in your life that are under 5 might be going through. So first and foremost, I have started most of these free Zooms in this quarantine time by letting you, parents of children under 5, whether you have 1 or 2 under 5, and letting you know that you officially win the prize for the worst age group to manage at this time. And I'm sure I didn't have to tell you that. You are feeling it. And the biggest reason why they're so difficult is because of their need to constantly be seen and cared for by a caregiver, right? If your child under 5 is securely attached to you, if they have healthy attachment, which we all want for young children, they will check in with you or any other caregiver every 10 to 15 minutes. That's why now, almost 8 months into this time that we are all living globally, it has felt really overwhelming for a lot of you. So know that that's normal. The other thing that is very, very normal in this age group, but it also makes it incredibly difficult to be a parent of an under 5-year-old, especially if you have 2, is that the statistic for tantrums is children between the ages of 2.5 and 4.5 have 3 major tantrums per hour, 3 major tantrums per hour, and 1 minor conflict with a caregiver approximately every 3 minutes. So I always want to start off with those statistics because I want to bring everybody's expectations down. What we know, the good folks at 0to3.org, those of you that have children under 3 years old, this is the website, not Baby Center, not parents.com. 0to3.org spelled out. They did a big research, and they put a lot of really amazing information about young children, recently researched information. And what we discovered was that a lot of you guys that have children 3 and 4, a lot of you feeling depleted or not like a good enough parent is only because you're expecting them to do things developmentally that 6-year-olds do. For example, impulse control, the ability to not do something or to follow a rule consistently every time after you've only told them the rule once. Yeah, nobody under 5 does that. Right? That is the realm of the 6-year-old. And why is it the realm of the 6-year-old? Because they have had 6 years of you, the parent, doing the 3 musts of parenting. Consistency in how you respond, meaning when they break a rule or when they make a mistake or when they do something that you're trying to teach them through, you always respond exactly the same way. Most of you don't do that, right? Sometimes you scream, sometimes you hug, sometimes you give in, sometimes you say something beautiful, right? Always say the same thing. So be mindful of that. So consistency in how you respond. Routine. So that's on my pain points, right? It's a mess. It's a mess right now, right? Because now all of a sudden we're back to normal. For some families, some of you have chosen to go back to school. So you see how the routine changing when everybody was kind of like at home, quarantined together and not going to their little preschools. If your children did go back, you see the mess and you see that routine is a must for young children. Anybody under 5 needs to have a routine that they can predict. And the way that young children predict their routine is not by the hour of the day, but by the pattern of the routine. Those of you that get this message from their preschool teacher, No, Bianca never does that in the classroom. Wow, that's unusual. And you're like, why is my child acting up at home but not at school? What am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. Well, hold on. Let me back it up. You may be doing one thing wrong. In the classroom, the routine is solid. They do circle, they do stations, they do outside play, then they come in and they have lunch. Some of them go home, some of them stay and they do nap, and then they do stations, and then they go outside, and then they get picked up. And your little tiny person can, especially if they're verbal, if they're 3.5 and older, can probably tell me the pattern of their classroom with a little help, but they can tell me, right? Most of them can only tell me the pattern of bedtime, because most of you as adults, you're pretty good at the bedtime routine, but during the day you get a little too flexible, especially on Saturday and Sunday because it's your weekend. But that's how you're shooting yourself in the foot. So I've already given you 2 tips for today, right? Consistency in how you respond no matter what the child does, because 3 times an hour they scream, fall to the ground, hit you, bite you when you consistently tell them, no, baby, you can't have mama's phone, right? Their response gets to change. Yours does not, right? And number 2, routine, routine, routine. Try not to be too flexible, because young children can't manage flexibility. And if you give them flexibility, there's a plan A and a plan B. And if plan A is more pleasurable, where they get the phone all the time and they get to eat whatever they want, they will never choose plan B, which is sticking to meals and having the screen in a particular time with a particular amount of time, because they're not dumb. Young children love pleasure, and they don't want to feel the hard feelings of frustration, disappointment, and sadness. So there you go. 2 tips. You can hang up now. Okay, so let's keep going. Now, those of you that did return to school, for a lot of you, a lot of the preschools allowed parents to come in from the very beginning, because they were considered essential places, because a lot of people had to work. But for a lot of you, you went back to school sometime around August, right? And right now, and usually, if you hear the talk that I did for free in August for young children, I let parents know that there are 45 days, a 45-day transition, right? From the first day that they go back to school to where we are now, where we should expect unusual things happening. Now, I am going one more time. Most of you guys with young children, you think that is something is wrong when it's just development. So here's a little truth about what's completely normal in an early childhood setting. Children hit, push, spit, and bite. Perfectly normal. Your child is either the biter and the hitter, or your child is the child that's getting hit or pushed. Or if your child has never gotten hit and pushed, I guarantee that you're probably not on this call. And or your child is very flexible and you're worried that your child is too much of a pushover. So let me explain what I mean by that. In an early childhood setting, all of your children are doing exactly what we want them to do, which is to learn to be social. But the key word here is learn to. And each one of them have goals in the classroom, in their social emotional development, and in their development in general, that they are walking through and they are problem solving. So why does the child hit, bite, or push? By the way, that's the smartest kid in the classroom. Why? Because most children are seeking pleasure the majority of the time, and they want full, undivided affection and circles of connection and attention from the caregiver. And in the classroom, the caregiver is the teacher. So sometimes they're playing, a little person kind of toddles over. If you have siblings, you have seen this at home, and then they just grab. Nobody asks, especially in the first 45 days of school, because nobody has told them, hey, if you want a toy, you have to ask or give another one. Tip number 3, When your child is having a hard time sharing, share means nothing to a 3 or a 4-year-old. Share actually means I lose my toy, because you haven't explained to them, when you have a toy and another friend wants to use it, you either give it to them or you offer them another one. Teach them how to share. Don't just say share, because put yourself in their shoes. You tell them share, you take the toy out of the hand and you give it to the other child. What's the definition of share if you haven't explained what you just did? I lost my toy. So when you say share, a smart kid will be like, whoop, and hide it. All of you are seeing it as like, oh, they're bad. They're not social. My child is a sociopath. No, they're not. They're smart, because you haven't told them, hey, we have to take turns, and you've used it for too long. So now I'm going to give you another toy, and this toy we're going to give to Felipe, right? So again, why does a child bite? Because there's 8 children in the classroom. Now the teacher has this extra burden of trying to keep them socially distanced, which is incredibly difficult for young children. And the preschools are surprising me and making me want to hug them and kiss them, because they're doing an amazing job of keeping all the restrictions that the Department of Health is giving them, which they are crazy. It's like the Department of Health does not know a 2-year-old. They probably don't, they forgot. But they're doing it. They're doing it, and they're doing it well, the majority of the preschools. So it is, when your child, if your child is the biter, it's because they don't know how to tell a child, no, I'm playing with this, or no, here, play with this, right? And you bite once, and then if you're a smart human being, you realize, look at that, everybody leaves me alone, and then the teacher stops dead in her tracks and she starts talking to me, right? And mom, dad, parents that are listening to me right now, if you have a child that is biting in the classroom, most of the interventions are in the classroom, right? At home, you have to say to your child, uh-oh, you must have been very frustrated, and that's why you hit your friend. But remember, all the toys are for all the kids. And that's it. Because the intervention is in the classroom. The teacher has to inventory and notice when are the times that your child bites. If your child bites continually and you hear something to the effect of, it came out of nowhere, it just happened, they just bit him, that might be a sensory issue, and that's a separate situation. So write this down, go in the Googles, understood.org, understood.org, sensory processing disorder, right? And yes, now in October, that's what I would rule out, because sometimes children bite because they get overstimulated by their senses and they're actually protecting themselves. And usually the teacher speak is, Lina, that happened out of nowhere. And then that makes me, the professional who has the correct wording, go, huh, that's interesting, right? So again, that's what's happening with the biter. Now, if your child is the one that's getting pushed and beat, they're not weak. Nope, nope, nope. They're making this mistake. They have the toy, and then when the other child grabs it from their hand, they don't let it go. So the biter's smarter, and they go, and they bite them. Right? So how do you, again, the intervention is primarily in the classroom. The teachers help. They are continually speaking to the biter. They are continually speaking to the child that is being bit. But at home, you can say one more time, I know it's so sad because Felipe is learning how to play with toys and share. But when Felipe is very upset and he's pulling the toy from you, please let it go. Now, I am using a male name because a lot of you out there get stuck in this old idea of gender and this old idea of, well, my son needs to learn to be tough and defend himself. And yeah, no, not children under 5, because Children under 5 do not have the cognitive ability, the thinking ability to weigh out, is this a moment when I should hit? Is this a moment when I should fight back? Is this a moment when I should walk away? Or is this a moment where I should ask for help? They're too young. So telling a child, si te pegan, tú le pegas. And I did it in a Cuban accent. I'll do it in a Colombian accent. Ole, no deje que nadie lo toque. ¿Me escucha? Right? And I'm doing the Spanish version because we live in a very gender binary culture, like primarily it's changing slowly. We expect them to do that, but they're too young. And you know, any male that has grown up in this gender binary of strong and weak, when they're in a bar and somebody's acting up, they're thinking in their mind, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to walk away with my lady, or am I going to defend us and fight? And under 5-year-old cannot do that. So please don't tell your child if somebody hits you, hit them back, because they are going to become the hitter in the classroom. Because they don't know how to discern when to hit or when not to hit, when to defend and when not to defend. And FYI, everybody, we all have basic reflexes and instincts. If your child is truly in danger, they will fight back. It's built into this organ right here, the brain. So again, if your child is getting bit, it's because they're not letting go. 8 out of 10 times, they're not letting go. And if your child has never gotten bit, again, you probably have an observant, shy child, you know, that's always paying attention to the classroom. They know that Felipe is a biter. When Felipe gets close to them, they walk away. Hi, second smartest kid in the classroom, because that's exactly what you need to do when little Felipe, who is still learning how to share with their toys, is coming at you. It's super important. So guys, this is what's playing out in the classroom. Also, the flexible kid, you know, they can't be bothered. Like, they see that all the kids are like fighting over toys and they just walk away. Please don't see that as a weakness. See that as a problem-solving scenario, right? So that is happening in the early childhood setting. The other thing that is happening in the early childhood setting is that they're learning to trust their caregiver. Hopefully now by October, they're not crying when you're dropping them off at school. Now, if they are crying when you're dropping them off at school, there is a high possibility that you have not done a good job with your goodbyes, or you're rushing and getting into school too late. So you're bringing them in frazzled and they're crying still because of the fast frazzle. If you are a parent that you keep showing up to school late, and I get it, it's super hard, know that you're setting them up for that cry when they get to school, because they haven't really settled in. Also, if you have the little ones that people call shy, I personally call them observant. I call them little Buddhas, because they're always paying attention to everything and they move slowly. If you have that child and your school starts at 8:15, for your child that's observant and shy and quiet and moves slowly, school starts at 8. They need those 15 minutes before they get to school to feel safe. So again, for school and returning to school, you always have to look at the temperament of your child, but these are things that are normal. So a lot of the time I'm talking about, you know, the normal questions about school. Now, I've already said this, routine is a mess now. If it is a mess, if you just kind of went for a free-for-all during the quarantine time, it could take up to 3 months. I know you want to punch me in the face. I'm so sorry. 3 weeks to 3 months for your child to get back into the routine. So you are, luckily, you probably have some form of routine if you did take them back to preschool. So just, you know, give it until November, right? Now, your child is tantruming because you set a boundary. Why it's so difficult to be a parent of an under 5-year-old is because you're having a really hard time managing the feelings that bubble up for you, parent. When you have young children, you feel conflict all of the time and rejection all of the time. But let me reframe that for you. Yes, you are having conflict. However, the conflict is not against you, the parent. The conflict is against the boundary that you have set. So it is important for you to be clear on why you have the boundary, right? And the boundaries that I want you to keep, no matter what the baby does, no matter how the baby responds emotionally, which is the tantrum, dropping to the ground, arching the back, hitting their head, going, no, 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 right? Just hearing me say that makes you cringe. Is because they are still learning how to feel, right? So if you say, no, no, baby, I can't let you use my phone right now, that's mama's phone, and then they like, you mean, no, they hit you. The hit is anger, right? The neutral, the most basic immature reflex to anger is to hit. How many times have you been on 836 and somebody cuts you off and you slam your steering wheel when nobody's in the car with you? You gave in to your instinct of anger. Their feelings are brand spanking new, so they express a lot of their emotion, especially difficult emotion, anger, frustration, disappointment, sadness, in a very unedited way. So you are teaching them how to manage emotion. That's emotional intelligence, the ability to label an emotion, tolerate an emotion, and recuperate from an emotion. So again, if you take away the phone and you put it down, that's handling the behavior. That's the consequence. Them dropping to the floor and crying and saying, phone, 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 is them tolerating the disappointment that they can't play with your phone and the disappointment of your boundary. In that moment, after you said no, no phone, the next thing I want you to do is, wow, you're really sad. Take a moment to settle down and then be quiet. No more words. Stay within eyesight of the baby, right? Stay within eyesight of the baby so they can still see you, and then start calming your own nervous system down. Forget about the child, and then tell yourself, the rejection is not of me. The conflict is not against me. The rejection and the conflict that my child is showing me is an emotional response to my boundary. They only get angry because they don't get what they want. Yes. Right? And they're learning to decrease and delay pleasure. Delay of pleasure, delay of gratification, delay of always wanting to be happy, right, is a social emotional marker that I don't expect anybody to manage 100% of the time till they're deep into their mid-20s. If you have a credit card in your purse, you do not delay gratification. You are spending money that you do not make. Unless you're getting miles, and I get it. Like now it's just a ploy. So again, that's what I want you to do. And that brings me to discipline, right? So I already told you that they check in with you every 10 to 15 minutes, right? That clingy is really about assurance, right? So you have to be mindful about how you respond to them. If anybody has told you to ignore the behavior for children under 5, they're wrong. When a child is doing something that we don't want them to repeat, the best response is a flat response. So your child is eating and they're like, especially a 2-year-old, that's my favorite, a 2-year-old, and then like throw the plate. A lot of you was like, no, no, we don't throw our food. Now your 2-year-old, the scientist is like, oh, look what I just made happen. My mommy got really big and elevated. Okay, when your child throws the plate, we don't. So one is acting big along with what they did. Now they're totally intrigued and they're going to do it again and again and again and again, right? 2 is like ignoring them completely. No, now they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because they want you to see them, to notice where they're at. It's normal for a child under 5 to say, see me, 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 right? So the correct response is to say, oh, we don't throw our dish on the floor. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Pick up the food. Okay. You're showing me that you're not going to have breakfast this morning. We'll eat in 2.5 hours. Do that consistently every single time. And then that's when they do behavior that, you know, we don't necessarily like or want them to repeat. And then finally, a lot of you guys in early childhood have the issue of your child having a favorite parent or a favorite caregiver and feeling like they only want to be with that one particular caregiver or one particular parent. And when that other parent is there, they're like, no, not you. Okay, this is perfectly normal. Children under 4, before they start labeling the world, because at 4, sometimes 3.5, if your child is highly verbal, they start labeling the world. So that's when they finally understand that there is a grandmother and an auntie, and they start labeling the people in their world, right? So before that, they just have caregiver number 1, caregiver number 2, caregiver number 3, and they rank you. And if caregiver number 1 and caregiver number 2 are in the same room, they're always going to want caregiver number 1 to do their care, to be with them too. So caregiver number 1 must hand child over to caregiver number 2 and then say, okay, they can take care of you. So back to this idea, if your child is still crying at drop off, they're either observant and shy, or you haven't done a good job of letting them know caregiver number 2, which is the teacher or the school, is safe. So I'm going to give you 2 hugs, 2 kisses, and I'm leaving. Now, if you yourself do not feel safe, then that's a different conversation. But if you have done your homework, you chose the school, you know you love it, then you have to teach your child that I am not the only person that can take care of you. There's many adults that love you and can take care of you. And the way that you do that is that you hand them over, kicking, screaming, crying, disappointed. You do not have to save them or protect them from disappointment. Disappointment is a natural human response. So you hand the baby to caregiver number 2 and you say, that's who's helping you now. And make sure, if you are caregiver number 2 and you're listening to this right now, and or if you're caregiver number 1, don't ever give up. Right? Don't go in there. Don't, like, you, if you hand your child over to caregiver number 2 and then you hear your child crying and crying and crying and you just can't tolerate it, you parent can't tolerate it because you don't want your child. Why am I making my child cry? This is so dumb. It's not dumb. You're allowing your baby to, 1, label disappointment, tolerate disappointment, and feel better from disappointment, which is emotional intelligence. And 2, understand that more than one person loves and takes care of them. And 3, you're releasing yourself from being a slave to this little baby, right? So do not go back in there and save caregiver number 2, and do not allow caregiver number 2 to hand the child back to you, right? Once you hand over, we're done. All right, so now I have 30 minutes to answer your questions. I will open it up so that you are able to raise your hand in case you want to ask me your question live and have other people hear you ask me the question. But if not, if you want to give me an anonymous question, you can put it in the Q&A. And if you have a general question, you can put it in the chat. All right, so the first question says,
the same lady that I talked to the last time.
Okay, so the first question is, hello, is it possible to discuss when a 3 to 4-year-old says hurtful things to people who love them? It's not all the time, but she will do this for a few days, then be an angel for 1 to 2 weeks, then start the cycle again. Thank you. Okay, so, okay, when a child says, you're ugly, you're mean, they're usually angry. So everyone, please do not get stuck on Do not get stuck on what they are saying, what is coming out of their mouth, but more what is the emotion that they are expressing. So usually when a child 3 or 4 years old tells you that they hate you, or that you are a mean parent, or that I don't want Liliana to come to my party, it's because they're sad, disappointed, or frustrated. So what you do in that moment is that you look at them and you say, wow, you're using mean words because you're very, very angry. But I'd much rather you tell me how you're feeling rather than use mean words. Repeat and remind, repeat and remind, repeat and remind. You are going to remind your child not to use mean words and not to hit multiple times. Why? And remember, respond the same way every time, because they're learning how to be social in the world. They're learning how to tell a friend, hey, I didn't like it when you told me that you didn't want to play house. And they're learning how to do that, and they're not going to perfect it for a little while. So that's usually the reason why they're using those mean words. Okay, the next question is in the chat. It says, my 3.5-year-old started biting his nails in March. I am having a hard time breaking this habit, even as a few things have returned to normal while others have not. Do you have any advice? Okay, so nail biting is, there's 2 reasons for it and why so many people do it. And it is a way for the brain to focus, right? So some people bite pencils, some people bite their nails. And usually when children start biting their nails, you notice that they do it in the car, on long car rides, or while they're watching television, or or when if they have done their little preschool in virtual school. It's just a way to kind of like, calm their system down. So when it's a habit of, when the brain creates a habit that creates that kind of calm and that kind of focus, that's why it's repeated, and it's also why it's so hard to break, right? So what you have to do, what I recommend, is first take a week to notice when you catch him biting his nails, right? And my guess it's going to be when he's waiting for something, when you're in the car together, when he's watching television, when you're reading a book to him. So in those cases, we have to make him we have to make, not him, but his brain, his automatic brain, conscious of not putting the finger in the mouth. So buy gloves, fun gloves. And let's say that you discover, most of the time my child bites their nails when they're in the car, and when we're in a long car ride and we're watching TV. You're going to tell them, okay, we're working on not biting our nails, so we're going to put on the gloves. Why? Because then when they put their hands in their mouth, they're like, oh, gloves, and then they stop. And then it's kind of like a gym of memory. The rest of the time you have to say, hey, you're focusing, take the fingers out of the mouth. Do not go into a lecture because you're going to hurt your finger, and then it's so don't go into because in that moment you're just snapping the brain out of the automatic, right? And you're, hey, your hands are in your mouth. Remember that we take them out. You're trying to focus, breathe. Okay, so repeat and remind, repeat and remind. This could take a while, but I highly recommend the gloves, and you figure out when to put the gloves on by spending a week writing down the times when you catch them biting. Okay? All right, so somebody has raised their hand, so they want to use their voice. That's awesome. So go ahead and unmute yourself and ask me your question.
Hi, so my question is, we live in a bilingual home, and Spanish is our first language, but we do use English. However, we choose to speak Spanish mostly at home because of the kids. How do I help especially my oldest, he's 5, to feel more comfortable speaking Spanish? Because once he started pre-K 4 and now he's in kindergarten, it's been English mostly all the time. And
Right.
after COVID, where there was more TV in English and more books in English and more content in general in English, he went that way. And
Right. Okay, so I want to take away your goal.
Okay.
Your you're verbalizing your goal, and it's not an appropriate goal. How do I make him feel comfortable? You can't. So he's choosing English because he's gotten faster at it. And bilingual children tend to do that both when they're learning to speak and then as they get older, right? And why? Because the brain is efficient, right? So why he wants to speak in English is because he's more comfortable and he can say what he means faster. So he's not going to feel comfortable. So understand that when you ask him to speak in Spanish, it's frustrating. So it's more about naming the feeling that he's feeling when he's trying to speak. He in his mind knows, if I say this in English, I'm going to say it a lot faster. If I say it in Spanish, I have to think too much. And every 4, 5, 6-year-old like hates the feeling of frustration. Frustration tolerance is actually frustration tolerance is actually a social emotional marker that children tend to develop and get better at as they get closer to 8. So as it pertains to bilingual children, continue to speak Spanish to him. For any of us to maintain a second language, because now Spanish is his second language, we must hear it and use it 30% of the time. So we need to do a little math and figure out how many hours of wakeful time is 30% of the time in your home. A nice little trick is to counter. So buy books and have him watch TV shows that he watches in English, but he has to watch them in Spanish. Make sure that there are times when it's like Viernes de Español or Sábado de Español, right? So that it becomes a game and then everybody in the household is speaking Spanish. But they will, your child will be frustrated, and you could just say, wonderful, qué bien, me lo dijiste en inglés, pero ahora trata en español. Yo sé que es difícil, so just kind of name how hard it is, and keep at it. Keeping bilingual children is incredibly, it's one of the hardest tasks. It's incredibly difficult. I did a whole campaign with a advocacy group that I work with called MomsRising. So Sania, write this down. Google MomsRising bilingual children, and that page will pop up, and it's a whole big list of things that you can do and resources to continue on your time being with trying to teach your children to be bilingual. All right, so I have another question in the Q&A. It says, I have 4 kids. Why did you have 4 kids? Okay, ranging from 8, 6, 4, and 2. My 8-year-old is constantly talking back and doesn't do what I ask. She's always arguing with me, and it's worse with her father. What is going on with my child? Okay, so I will be doing that age group next week. Next week at this time. So I recommend that you come back to that, and I will probably answer your question in the first 30 minutes, but right here in the quick and dirty. One, your 8-year-old, there's probably 3 reasons. One is developmental. Most children between 8 and 10 are practicing setting boundaries and looking for independence. They're practicing, right? They don't do it perfectly every time, right? So when she says, stop, no, yeah, listen for the boundary that she's trying to set in an immature way and say, okay, what I hear you saying is, and then fill in the blank. And so that you teach her how to set boundaries in a mature way, but she's doing them immaturely. 2, an 8-year-old living with a 2-year-old is probably problematic for her. 2-year-olds, 8-year-olds still need to be seen, still have a need for the parent to notice them. And 2-year-olds are notorious for calling attention to themselves, and they're really, really good. So you may want to ask her, hey, what's it like to be the oldest? What's it like to be 8 with all these little people? Because the 4 and the 2-year-old probably drive her nuts. And please don't make her be nice to them 100% of the time. Give her permission to walk away from her younger siblings. But I do recommend that you come back for the free call next week, where I will get more into the school age mind, and I may be able to answer your questions in a more thorough way. Okay, so I have another question in the chat, and it says, my 4.5-year-old woke up overnight saying she was scared of the shadows. She does this once or twice a week, and she stays awake for up to 2 hours. Oh, poor baby. We share the same room because there's no other room, and she keeps me awake, wanting to stay close to me and talking the whole time. Other nights it's the 2.5-year-old who does the same. What should I do? Okay, so the 4-year-old is doing something that is developmentally appropriate. A lot of children, for some children, it starts as early as 3.5 and it goes all the way to 6. Again, developmental markers are in a spectrum, right? It's like some do it, some don't do it. So if your child is not doing it, so if your child is not doing it, then it's fine. Don't worry about it. But those that do, 4-year-olds start incrementing their creativity. And the shadow of that developmental, that cognitive, meaning that thinking developmental marker, is that they tend to do a lot of fantasy. Everybody, practical tip, I will be putting this on Instagram because it's super important. All of you guys, be very careful with the Halloween decorations all over the city. Enjoy COVID time to keep them, like children 4, 5, and 6. Those things that are in people's houses, the zombies, the please don't show it to them. Like, please just drive by and forget about it, because for this age group, it's perfectly normal to all of a sudden think about things and believe that they are real. They start believing in zombies and witches and ghosts. Every child has a different in robbers and now with the pandemic, a lot of them, they are already nervous because we are nervous, and then that natural 4-year-old fear, right? That it just pops up more because they understand more. They understand that one thing that 4-year-olds understand is that people die. Another thing that 4-year-olds understand is that, that they have responsibilities. And prior to that, they were just safe and they just believed what the adults around them were saying. So the first thing I want you to know is that it's normal. Now, what do you do? At night, at bedtime, before you go to bed, you turn off the lights, and we have to include the 2-year-old. In a perfect world, we would just we would just do it with the 4-year-old, but we're going to include the 2-year-old, and you're going to you're going to sit in the dark awake, and then you're going to tell her, okay, show me the shadow that makes you feel scared. And then she'll point at it, or she'll go, no, I don't want to. She was like, no, we have to look at it because sometimes our eyes trick us, right? So show me the shadow, right? And then she'll say over there, and then whether with your phone or you turn on the light again and you show her what it actually is, right? So that we can do some logic. But don't say, oh yes, oh no, you're fine. She's not fine. Her body is, her nervous system is turning on the fear response, which is heart going fast, tension in the jaw, tension here. So as part of bedtime from now until this passes, short and sweet. Don't make it too long, because then, you know, children that are leaders and are also always asking for see me will use that. So keep it short, like okay, for the next 5 minutes, we're going to turn off the lights and look around and see what's scary. And then say, yes, you're right, that does look like a wolf, but let's turn on the light and see what it is. And then repeat and remind, and do that several times, and it should pass. All right, hopefully that was helpful. Okay, Kristen, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask me your question live.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Oh, well, I actually recently last week I started to do a rewards chart with my daughter.
How old is your daughter?
She's 4.
Yeah, throw that away.
It actually has been working because she's been behaving like a lot better than expected.
Right.
But one of the tasks that I've been having a problem with is the cleanup. Like whenever she plays with her toys, you know, I even tell her, you know, let's do cleanup. But she continues to refuse to do cleanup. Can you suggest like any fun way to get her to do cleanup?
Okay, so let me speak about rewards. Rewards are, so like, because you asked a 2-part question, right?
Okay.
And your question is, are reward charts and stickers good for children? You didn't ask it, but you should have.
I mentioned it exactly.
And number 2, but the rewards and stickers isn't working for cleanup, which helps, and what can I do about it, right? And it doesn't work because, okay, so rewards are just as bad as threats.
Okay.
Right? Because we want, and it's McDonald's it's the McDonald's of discipline, right?
Okay.
Because in the short term, promising them a sticker and a toy at the end of the week, it will work. But eventually, the shiny toy at the end of the week, they don't care about. And their need to not feel frustration, disappointment, and sadness, which is the emotion that comes up when we clean up, or when we end the day, or when we brush the teeth. That's what is causing them not to do the task that you're asking them to do. It is not fun to clean up. It is not fun. It doesn't feel good. And young children hate doing things that don't feel good to them. And we, the parent, with repeating and reminding, show them by repeating the same constant routine how that, yes, you feel frustration for a little while, but then you feel proud. Okay?
Okay.
So the reward sticker chart tells them to clean up because they get something, rather than we clean up because we are a tidy, clean family, and it's a kind thing to do for the home. And you're going to feel so proud, right? But when you do that, that's why it's like a nutritious organic meal. It takes time.
Okay.
Okay, so don't do the sticker chart, and then clean up. Okay, so sometimes people make mistakes with cleanup. Okay, children 4 and younger like to dump their toys out and then see what they want to play.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what she does.
Okay, so and then you're going in there and going, no, limpia ese antes de jugar con este.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm doing.
So don't do that, because you're asking her to speak in Japanese and you haven't taught her Japanese, right? So she's doing something that's perfectly normal. She's dumping all her toys out because she's in the middle of play. And she may put a dinosaur with the Barbie into her, kitchen. And that is her like using everything in that playroom as creativity. Now, Kristen, you may have made the other mistake, which is you have 32 different types of toys in her playroom.
Yes.
Stop. So at some point, and I'm asking you for a lot, so I don't punch me in the face while I say this.
No.
Ready? Pare down the toys. Every child should have less than 10 toys in their playroom. And every month, change it. If you have too much selection, they will dump all of it so that then they can discover how to play with it. And that's how you end up in this crazy, nasty chaos. If you look at a preschool classroom, how many stations are in the classroom?
Well, you have like different stations, yeah.
Yes, but there's only 6.
Okay, there's 6.
Right? So clean up the playroom. Get rid of the toys that she hasn't played with in the last 3 months. Make sure that each one of those toys has something that she can be practicing, something that is fine motor, so her fingers, something that is gross motor that helps her move with her big muscles, something that helps her be creative, so like something drawing, but pare it down. 10 toys or less for children or under 4, or else they get overstimulated and they dump everything.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. That it's just she has just too much of everything, and like
yes,
she's just
she's just trying to figure out what to play with. It's kind of like, it's like going to California Pizza Kitchen, right? Not California Pizza Kitchen, Cheesecake Factory. And you look at that freaking menu and you're so freaking hungry, but you can't choose because there's like
so much to choose from.
Things. Yes, you're overwhelming her. So let her dump. Decrease the toys. Don't like, no, you don't have to get rid of them, but like change them like every month.
Every month I change
it up, and it's a new station, and to her it'll be like brand spanking new. And then one time, one big cleanup. And when we do cleanup, we go, okay, we're going to clean up together. I'm gonna clean up the dinosaurs, you clean up the cars. And then you start cleaning up the dinosaurs, even if she's just standing there looking at you. If she starts playing, no, it's not time to play. And you're going to do that for 3 to 5 weeks. And when she cleans up something, wow, you were feeling frustrated, but you picked up that toy. That's wonderful. 3 weeks. Okay. So pare down the toys. Number 1. Number 2, don't expect her to clean up between the toys, because what she's doing is dumping so that she can see what she has. So she can see her palette, all the things that she can play with. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I have 9 minutes.
I know that you have to leave.
No, I'm gonna go to the next question. So what would you? If I have 9 minutes, so I have two more questions. So
okay, that's fine. Because I wanted to ask you something else, but that's fine. I can wait for the next Zoom then.
Yes, perfect. Then remember, like, if always somebody may have asked your question in the old recording, so definitely go check them out in the blog. All right. Okay. So
thank you so much.
No worries. Okay, my 4-year-old boy always plays. Oh wow, I have a lot. Okay, let me ask this one. My 4-year-old has just joined a new school, and after 4 weeks, he has had many incidents of hitting, biting, throwing at him. Yes, in the playground, not the classroom. Some of this is play fighting and some not. Recently, he lashed out on another child. Good for him. He learned after an incident in the playground while he was being pushed, but he hit him with a chair. How should we talk to him about this at home? We are working on him labeling his emotions, and we really want to help him learn how to walk away from a situation he can't handle. How can we role play this? Okay, so I'm glad that I was able to tell you that hitting, biting, and pushing is normal, and he is probably not letting go and kind of asserting himself, but not as abruptly as the other children, but it's perfectly normal. So and throwing the chair was just him like, I'm done, I'm fed up, right? Which is, again, normal, but we don't want him to do that. So all you have to say is, remember what I said, wonder with the teachers, what are they saying to him and to the other children when there is hitting, because I always want you to echo and back up what is being said in the classroom, because most of this intervention is in the classroom. And yes, it is recess, and recess is a time when teachers take breaks, so it's usually the assistant teacher or the fill-in. So please get clarity from the school about what the fill-in is doing and who's keeping eyes. Now for your son, When he has a bad day, don't start asking him, did somebody hit you? How was today? Don't do that. When you pick him up, you say, what was the fun part of your day? What was the hard part of your day? Did you learn something new today? No. Fine, doesn't matter, leave him alone. But if you get the report that he got hit, you could say to him, okay buddy, so what did you do? What happened? Right? Don't make him a victim, don't make him a perpetrator. Just say what happened and then tell him, okay, when it starts getting very like there's a lot of energy and people are running around, really, the first thing that you can do, buddy, is walk away, right? And the second thing that you can do is go talk to your teacher, right? And then just repeat and remind, repeat and remind, repeat and remind. But know that this is normal, and it sounds like your child just doesn't want to roughhouse the way that the other children want to roughhouse. So also tell him to look in the playground and notice who's on the swings, notice who's in the sand, and go play with the children that are being calm. Okay, so but most of this intervention is truly a school intervention. So get very, very curious with them about, hey, so what happens? And I know that the teacher's taking a break. So how does it feel and speak to my child so I can echo that response? All right, so the next question, and then it's going to be the last question. My apologies. My 4-year-old boy always plays that he is a female animal, usually a mother elephant, fascinated with motherhood. He gives milk to his toys, fascinated with the breastfeeding, although he doesn't see it from me since I don't have another child. I find it super, super cute, but of course, my Latino family is all very much like, how the hell do we handle this? What can I say to them? Oh, okay. So he's caregiving. That's what you say to them. He is most Latino. Like I'm gonna speak out what it most. It's not just the Latino community; it's every community because of the gender roles and the gender pieces. They they all think about, oh, now my child is gay, right? And sexual orientation, and you're like, wait, what? We're talking about under 5-year-olds. But let me just share this. Sexual orientation, knowing who we are attracted to, who we want to kiss, who we want to touch, who we want to be with, is the realm of 10, yes, 10 years up, right? Right now, children 7 and under is truly about gender and how we express our gender, and looking for context clues in the world of what it means to be feminine and masculine. But what we know for sure, science knows for sure, not culture. Culture thinks that feminine is Sofia Vergara and masculine is Sofia Vergara's very handsome man. That's what culture says. That there are two options. But science tells us that there is a spectrum of gender, right? And human beings are somewhere in this spectrum. I spend $200 at Sephora on a regular. Why? Because I'm ultra feminine, right? But there are some women that they would not put foundation on their face even if a gun was put to their head, right? There are males that are, you know, super masculine, right? But then there are some that are, a little more what is coded as feminine. It's harder for the male species, it's harder for those that have penises between their legs to like things that are feminine because of our culture that tells us that the only way to be feminine is to be Sofia Vergara, and the only way to be masculine is to be like Sofia Vergara's husband, right? But that's not true. We're in a spectrum. So what do you say to your family? Don't worry. We don't have to think about him being gay until he's over 10 years old. Right now, what he is doing is that he is playing, taking care of another human being. And he does that because of all the people that love him. He is actually playing out how loving you are, how loving your extended family that take care of him are. like when I walk into a preschool classroom, because I do a lot of consultation in preschools around the city, I see children play. And when I see them playing, I see your homes, right? So if I saw your 4-year-old taking care of a baby, I would be like, wow, he must have really loving family members and really loving adults that take care of him. So when your family gets up in arms, you could just say to them, no, children play what they see and feel. And our baby sees us taking care of him, so he's taking care of the toys. So there you go. There's the answer. All right. So, and yeah, in my world, we would end the gender binary. All right, everybody. So thank you for being on. Sania, I'm glad you found the Moms Rising bilingual page. Share, share, share. Sharing is caring. And Lamel, mwah, Kellet. I have a friend. Her last name is Kellet. She wrote a TV show. Maybe your relatives. Okay, I'm going to share the screen again and tell you about other ways to reach me. I know that I probably gave you more questions than answers. So if you want to talk to me one-on-one for an hour and a half, give me your individual situation and your individual problem. You can do that in a parenting consultation. I will listen to you and I will give you specific information of how to handle what's going on. I'll give you the why of the behavior, the solution to the behavior, and a plan for the behavior. That's $300. And you can give us a call, or you can go to the website, stopparentingalone.com, hit contact, and then you hit schedule, and then you'll be able to fill out the form that gets you to me. Or all of you guys that have children under 5, this is the Cadillac of services that I have. $49 a month. You have me all to yourself in your cell phone 24/7. I have a private Facebook group where you ask your questions and I answer those questions within 24 hours, sometimes 48, depending on how crazy my schedule is. And every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, I answer six questions, give each person 10 minutes. And you could ask me questions like you did today, but it's every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And that Q&A that I've been doing since April of 2016 is in a private area of my website. So you can just do the subscription for 1 month and you can get my master's degree. Listening to me answering question after question after question. So to me, I think that this is a great deal. It's, you know, it's less money than a really bad meal out, and you will have a parenting expert and a child development expert in your pocket. All right, guys, I will see you all next time.